Hi, it's Steve Hargadon, and welcome to the Emergency Home Learning Summit. Our special guest today is Yong Zhao. Welcome, Yong.
Thanks, Steve.
So glad to have you here.
Well,
What's
happy
your
to be
job?
here.
What do you do? What's your job?
Well, I'm a professor. I'm a professor at the University of Kansas, professor of education, and also at the Melbourne Graduate School of Education that's in Australia. So I kind of have two jobs. I also work with schools and to say help them change education, trying to devise a new type of education for children.
Did you grow up with a story about what school was? Did your family have a story?
Well, I don't. I think they do. I think they did. I remember my father, who is in his 90s now. I remember I grew up in a small village in China. That's in the 1960s, 1970s. I remember my father said, "Well, by the way, he's illiterate. I think he might be semi-illiterate, but remember he was telling me very, very young. He said, there are two jobs that you'll always be wanted, be a medical doctor or be a teacher. That was he was saying. So every dynasties in China wanted those two types of people. So I think he had an idea, but I don't think he knows what a school is. In that sense, I was basically a bad boy in the village. I couldn't do most of the village work. I couldn't run the water buffalo very well, couldn't climb trees to find, birds' eggs. I was really not interested and not good at that. And that's why he said, well, why don't you just go to school? And the school at that time was during the Cultural Revolution, in China, all the systems were down. So it's just basically one teacher teaching a group of students from different villages. So I think they did have a view that you go there, you go do what the teacher tell you do the homework, and that's schooling.
When did that story change for you?
I think as soon as I went to school is that because I was so bad at the village stuff, I had to be good at something. I think that's really a big shift. That's why I have been emphasizing look at what your children can do. I mean, I couldn't fight. I couldn't do any of the things well as other village boys. So I had to find a way to be good at something. And I was good at reading. I was good at the basic math, and there was not much teaching, by the way, I have to tell you, but I was good. So for that, I got a crowd of kids who say, "Okay, this guy is something. This guy is recognized." So I only become good in school. So I think that become a sanctuary for me, the school, not the village. And I really decided to say, I'm going to pursue this. By the way, at that time, there was no pathway. It doesn't mean that you finish elementary, you go to college, you leave. There was no college at that time. There was nothing. Just a teacher who came from one of the villages and just taught us. When there were no textbooks, nothing, because Cultural Revolution, everything was in disruption. But we had a place. The kids got together. We learned something that's not the same as what you would do in a village.
Would you say you have a philosophy of education?
I think so. Yeah, yeah. I think I believe it's very autobiographical. That is from myself and from my research of other people. I think my philosophy is that students should be the drivers of their own learning. That is, individuals are natural born learners, they're diverse learners, they're also intentional learners. Every child has their own intention. What we need to do is to capitalize on that, have a strength based education to help each person become self regulated, self determined owners of their own learning, and then they negotiate with schools, with adults, with education systems. I think right now our education is absolutely wrong. It was okay, in the Industrial Revolution, you have authoritarian system, you prescribe a curriculum for all the children, you use your test to drive them through that. I don't think that's the right way. So my philosophy is that children are partners. Children are members of the learning cooperative we build as schools.
Do you think it's realistic to believe that a system can actually do that, to change and incorporate those principles?
I do. It will take time. You look at our society over the last 250 years, massive changes, massive changes. I did not used to believe when I first came to America in 1990. Look at legalization of marijuana. That's amazing, right? And you think about just 1990 to today. Think about legalization of the homosexual, marriage. That's shocking, right? Think about that. There will be ups and downs, but I think public opinions change. And so in education, it's the same issue. I don't think you can expect the system. For example, no matter who Biden might choose as Secretary of Education, I doubt she or him or whatever can drive a new education. I think it's always grassroots. Look at all the big industrial revolutions. I mean, all the big revolutions, they never came from a government to say, oh, okay, let's have a revolution. I don't think that happens. It's so in education, COVID has helped. I do see an increasing number of parents, students, teachers, and school leaders are seeking, are practicing different ways of education. I think the grassroots, so that's why I like your conference. It's the home, it's the individual children who start that revolution.
What kind of an adult helps a child become a self-regulated learner? What are the skills of an adult who's good at that?
I think there are a number of things. Number one, you have to treat your children as independent, as intentional. You cannot just force them to do what you want them to do. I bet many parents had that struggle with their kids. And they say, oh, you got to do whatever I tell you to do. And they had a lot of struggle. And children, some of the working, good working ethic children may play, may pretend to follow you to do the homework. You get other rebellious kids, they just fight against you. I mean, how many of us adults right now do really know the lives of our children, entire life? We don't. So we need to accept that children are independent. So you work with them in collaboration. Second thing is that we need to have a different angle of looking at children's growth. I'm a parent. When children are growing up, you try to look at every minute of their life. I think honestly, modern parenting has damaged the education is because we try to be with children all the time. We watch TV together. Children need own time to process, to develop. They can interact with you, but not all the time. Another thing is the parents needs to look at much beyond. I get nervous when my kids get, you look at that, they are watching TV, they're playing video games, they're doing this, they're doing that. You should get nervous. Oh God, I gotta go teach you. I said, no. I mean, I held myself back actually. That's very important to hold yourself back as long as you negotiate with your children, no matter how old they are, the necessary things they have to do. I hope that's as small as possible. Necessary aspect, they do homework, they go to school, you may not like it, but they're doing that, it should be okay. So negotiate that piece. So because short-term instructional outcomes can damage long-term educational outcomes. If you want the children to be curious, to be creative, you cannot keep talking about, did you remember the 46th president of the United States? Or that part. You want them to grow, at least to grow a love of learning, of growing. That's what you want to cultivate. That's much more important than any historical or basic facts. You also need a parent who is able to help your children to identify, to be smart about where learning can take place. That's everywhere. Have a proper opportunity to understand what school is about, not to be obsessed with schools, not just believe whatever school is. Like you can tell your children, school is a social institution. You have the obligation to participate. There are good teachers, there are bad teachers. There are good courses, there are bad courses. Use your judgment, not following everything you do, schools tells you. So there are many other things I can suggest, but I don't know if this is kind of meaningful way to think about.
I think it's very helpful. What has been the role of technology in reshaping our thinking about learning?
Well, there are really two roles technology have played. The first role has done more than the second role. The first one is technology overall pressures education, parents, and societies to redefine the value of knowledge. To redefine what was valuable in the agriculture society is not valuable in the industrial society. I was bad in my village work, but luckily I have a new life. So any of the village stuff did not help me much, but I'm happy that we have a new place that I can enable my ability in language, in thinking. So that has changed. Artificial intelligence, big data, smart machines, fourth industrial revolution. We're going to face a lot of automation, a lot of change, massive changes. That's big. And we've lost a lot of jobs. I mean, look at right now in American society and the society in other countries, we have big social unrest. Social unrest is a result of education not catching up to technology. So we have this, income gap. There may be other reasons, but you look at the income gap, the technologically smart, innovative people have made a lot of money. And in the Rust Belt, you look at Rust Belt, all those things lost, there's a lot of jobs. So that's been real, but schools have been talking about new abilities for children, creativity, curiosity, critical thinking, communication, all those new skills. But I don't think schools have seriously taken part in that. The second role is technology can help education. Today, if you have the internet, which I know there's digital divide, but if you have the internet and a device, you really have access to a huge abundance of people, experts, content, learning opportunities. But that has not been realized in schools. We've been advocating for using technology to help learning, but by and large, a lot of the technology is still controlled by teachers in the school, by teachers who may or may not use it. Today, in my view, is that a teacher does not have to instruct. A teacher needs to build resources for students. A teacher needs to understand the students. So in that regard, the number two role has not been widely realized and used. And teachers need to, I think, understand learning can, and in some places has escaped school system. Learning has escaped. Schools are left to credentialing students, to certify students. If you want learning to happen, you don't have to go to school, but you may have to go to school to be certified.
How important do you think it is to recognize that people are different, that they have different temperaments or ways of doing things?
Well, absolutely. That's probably the most important thing. We don't know what to do. So, I've joked about this, that, our school's biggest problem is we have kids. Without kids, we'll be very happy, And but now we have kids, and the kids, they're very different. That's the thing. So if you look at our schools, our first struggle is try to homogenize them. You look at schools, it's so funny. We have this one outcome. We expect you every year of students to graduate. If you look actually this one thing, this 1 year thing, just age is really funny. So we said, okay, year one or grade one or grade two, we still put a whole year range of students in there. That year can be splintered into any other format. Now you start from, let's say, August to next August, or you can start from December to next December. But anyway, you're capturing, even if you believe the age matters, you're still taking a whole year in. And once you take the whole year in, it doesn't work that way. And children are different. The second thing, children from different backgrounds. This big thing called achievement gap. That's been used for a long time, I think, as a cover for racism. Actually, it's horrible because the achievement gap, a lot of it is manufactured based on two subjects: literacy, numeracy, and test scores, and or other things. But what if we look at every individual, no matter how poor they are, no matter which racial group they come from, they all have some strength. They're good at something. If we can help each and every child to be good at what they are, we can change education. But we don't do that. We bring kids in, we test them. They said in literacy and numeracy, you're not good. Then I'm going to give you more literacy and numeracy. Then I'm going to deprive you of any opportunity to be good at anything. You look at the schools, we've been doing that, right? All this remediation, this all these courses trying to do that. We have a big problem with that. And then another one, of course, speaking of this progress, schools also have this belief that all children are dead. We're really pretending that, or they are easily to be programmed. And so we want them to make the same progress. We have every year, year one, you do this, year two, you do this. I don't know if you've done this, have you tried to throw a bird? If you try to throw a dead bird, you can predict where that bird lands. But if you are trying to throw a live bird, you will not be able to do that. And our schools try to do that. That's diversity. So that's just some simple things. That's why in our schools we have special education people who are the bad people. We have the gifted who are the good people. Then in the middle, even in the middle, in a class of 25 students, the teacher is teaching the middle 10 students or 15 students. You leave the top ones to do whatever you like, the bottom ones. So that's actually the biggest problem is diversity. Schools, by and large, the traditional school system does not know how to do that. We only know how to align them. You're good students, you're less good students, you're very bad students. We don't know how to activate every individual person.
So Plato said in the Republic that we have to tell a lie. It's a noble lie, but we tell this lie in order to govern, which is we have to convince people that they're gold, silver, bronze, or brass.
Right.
Do schools perform that function still? Is this still a way of convincing people that they're not capable?
Well, yeah, I think today's schools, if you look at schools, by and large, what do they produce in the end? They produce test scores and GPAs. And the ones the predominant way of assigning social opportunities is still based on a GPA and your SAT or SAT scores. Going to college, of course, we have other tests too. I'm just but if you look at GPA, what is a GPA? Grade point average. It is a number. So you get a 4.0, you get 3.9, you get 3.5, and you get 2.5. So it is a sorting mechanism. It is not an approach to capture what a person do you have in front of you. And then based on that sorting mechanism, we tell a lie to say, well, you are gold, you get to go to Harvard. Oh, but you are really maybe bronze, you don't go to community college. Oh, you're worse than that. You don't go anywhere, you go plumbing. So we don't really try to capture, we don't give hope to a lot of people. And then the government right now, is trying to say, okay, they need more opportunities. So we send them all to take the tests, the SAT. We make them all take the AP. But remember, the SAT does not really predict student success in college, but we still do that. And there's a huge gap, racial gap between on SAT. But if it doesn't predict what you will do well, why do you even have it? So we still play that game. I think we have a long time. And I think there are a lot of people in the 21st century, they're not necessarily in schools. They're still trying to pretend we have an economical system that someone has to govern others. But 21st century has changed. We have a lot of free agent people who don't want to be bossed around by others, who are creating their own jobs, they're entrepreneurs. And our society has drastically changed. And people have a lot more opportunities. More important, you don't really need to govern them to give them learning opportunities. People really can learn on their own.
So a parent or a student has been faced with a fall where their school's schedule is upended, where there are no extracurriculars, they're having to rethink their college applications. What advice would you give parents and students right now who feel like they're lost?
Well, there's been this conversation about called learning loss. I don't believe there's a learning loss if parents and students can be active. I don't know, Steve, how you find me. You can sit home, have a computer or a phone, type in a few words into Google, you will learn a lot. You know how many things you can connect to. Just one word. You say, okay, I'm interested in leadership. I'm interested in biology. If you type in that word, man, you'll be surprised. So I think the first thing, if you're stuck at home, a parents can do and a student can do is really to talk about what might you be interested in? What would you like to know more about? And write a report about that. You can talk about science, technology, engineering, math, history, music. You can do a lot of things, but really turn that into a problem solving process. Or what problem would you like to solve? And the learning is shocking, it's amazing. And also be brave to contact people. If you find, okay, somebody's doing something similar, can we organize a co-learning on Facebook, on Twitter? Or if you need some teacher, some professor, they're at home, they have nothing to do, you can contact them. They might give you explanation, may give you private tutoring. That's the technology piece. And then of course, locally, if you can move around, find local friends, local peers. We cannot forget we belong to communities. You have online, large global learning communities. You have local learning communities. You can do things together. You can use other technology to do this. Make sure you wear a mask. Okay, that's very important. When you do this, wear a mask. But the idea is that we can create our own learning ecosystem. And I think you just need the guts and to do that. And people ask me, how do you do it? I said, if you know how to type in Google, you know how to do it. You just have to figure out your own way. I'm not a person who is not very interested in giving people specific tactics. Because that everybody can invent that. If they get started with that, you will find new ways of doing things.